welcome to this week's Happy Mama TV. I'm Trish, and I have the pleasure of introducing you today to a fellow coach and good friend of mine, Michelle, who is a food and body relationship coach. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Tricia. How are you?
Good.
Hi,
How are
ladies.
you doing?
I'm good.
So tell us a little bit about what you do. So you're a food and body relationship coach. So how does that work?
Well, I made up that title myself. I'm very proud of it.
Awesome.
Because as far as I know, no one else has it. But I thought it worked really well because I help women who struggle with food and body and their relationship. And after doing this work for several years, I realized that in order to heal from issues with food, you also need to heal issues with your body. So the two are together and need to be worked on simultaneously in order to mend and heal and have a free and beautiful and peaceful relationship with food and body. So that's how I came up with my title.
I think pretty much every single person I know could probably use a food and body relationship coach because it's really prevalent among men, even more so nowadays than before, but especially, of course, women for generations have just had such a horrible relationship with themselves and their body image. So let's talk a little bit about that. How does that impact, do you feel, how does that impact the family?
Well, first of all, I totally agree with you that it's impacting huge percentages of the population. And I want to add that while it is mostly prevalent in women, it is also affecting men. And I will add that it's also affecting young boys. I have a 15-year-old, and my 15-year-old, I will tell you, has some body image issues. He's very lanky and tall, and some of the boys in his grade are buffed and big, and he hasn't grown into that yet, so it's not just for boys and girls and for women, it's also for the male population. So that's one thing I wanted to say, just to point out. I think it affects the family because, and I work with women primarily. I know that your group is for moms, so I'll focus on that. It can affect the family in many, many different ways. Oftentimes when women have a fractured relationship with food and body, they check out, and when I say that, I mean that they turn to food, they turn to body bashing, because something else is going on in their lives. And so food for so many people is a constant comforter, it doesn't talk back. It's always available. Really, it's an ideal friend. I call it my BFF, my best friend food. And, we're in that type of place where food is readily available to us. And when we have kids, let's face it, there's snacks around, there's stuff around, they have friends over. So it's really easy to always be grabbing for food. And oftentimes it's done for emotional reasons, because we're stressed, because we're overwhelmed, because we're working 2 or 3 jobs, like you and I are both entrepreneurs and we have families and, let's face it, it's not easy. We're also both very blessed that we have loving and supportive husbands. But even with that, I still experience overwhelm sometimes. So it's all around us, and it's just very important that we are looking to stay checked in as often as possible, because that does affect our relationships with our children, with our spouses, with our partners, with our extended family, because we're not present. We're not mindful. And on so many levels, mindfulness helps us to reduce stress in our lives. But in terms of eating and the way we feel about our bodies, adding mindfulness into our lives can improve our lives on so many different levels. But it's also very important to understand that when we are checked out and we're not mindful, even though we think nobody notices, they notice. And let's face it, we want to be present for our families, mind, body, and soul as often as possible. No one can do it 100% of the time. We are human, But when we keep checking out, to grab some food or like to binge or whatever it is, wherever your relationship is with food, be aware that it is really like, it is a checkout, and I know when I was very active in my eating disorder years ago, I was there for my son, but I didn't feel like I was all in. I really honestly didn't. And that is extremely painful for me to admit, but it's also the reality of it. So I think we want to be always modeling behaviors for our children that we want them to carry forward. And so I think that getting back into our bodies and really listening to it is a great way to do that.
You were talking about mindfulness, specifically with eating. So can you go into that a little bit? Like, what does that mean to be mindful in relation to what you're eating or how you're eating it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I know for a fact, because I've coached many moms, and I know from my own experience that when we eat, we're worried about what everybody else is doing. And does so-and-so have enough? Is that warm enough? And especially with kids, they tend to be a little bit temperamental with their food. So we're like, oh, well, what is so-and-so going to want? I have to make a PB&J for them because they won't eat this. I remember the routine really, really well, and I still live it to some extent. What I mean about mindfulness is when we sit down to eat, if we sit down to eat, which I know is not always even possible when you have little ones, to really to focus in on the food. First of all, before we even eat, to say thanks, and to remember that where the food came from, and that in many cases, it sounds crazy, but like an animal gave its life for us, a lot when we're eating animal protein. Vegetables were harvested for us. And I think just bringing us into that point of, wow, this is really not like something that's so easy, and I'm really thankful for this food. That connects us right away. Keeping our feet on the floor if we can, if we're standing and running around with the kids, still take that moment to taste the food. Let it hit your tongue before it goes down the hatch, and to be like just more in touch with the texture of the food, the flavor, the smell of the food. Let it hit the roof of your mouth, let it hit your tongue, let it hit your cheeks, and chew. So many of us are rushing all the time. I totally get it. But what I try to do as often as possible, even when my son was smaller, was if I needed to eat separately from my family, but still eat with them at mealtime. Because for me, that was easier, and I was able to be more mindful when I was doing that. And even when I am eating with my family, of course, now the dynamics have changed because my son is older, but I still take that moment to look at my food and smell it and check in with myself during my meal and say, am I feeling full yet? Just that really basic question, because when we're checked out, we are completely not aware of if the food is even satisfying us, whether or not we are full. And so what happens oftentimes is people overeat, and that's because they're checked. They're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize what I was eating, and before I knew it, the whole bag of XYZ was gone. My hand was like scraping the bottom, or the spoon was hitting the bottom of the Ben & Jerry's thing. And I mean, I've been there a million times, so I totally get it, So, I take a very, no food is off limits in my world. And so I feel, if you want to have ice cream with the kids, I say go for it. Get the best quality ice cream you can get. Serve it up in a bowl, not in a container. Up a spoon and sit down with your kids and enjoy the ice cream, And it can be a really joyous, a joyous experience. I think your kids will get a kick out of it, and you'll be having something that's satisfying to you without having all that guilt. And a lot of people serve themselves up 2 and 3 scoops of ice cream, just as an example. But if they're really paying attention, they will, in most cases, realize that they don't even want all that ice cream. They really don't.
Yeah.
And because when you're paying attention and you're like, you know what? I think I'm full, or I think I've had enough. And when you're checked in, you realize that. When you're checked out, you're like, it's here. I'm talking, I'm eating, and it's gone. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm so full. Like, why do I keep doing this to myself?
And then you feel
like
gross. Like you totally feel gross. Like I've been there where you're just kind of like, my husband and I have that horrible night eating pattern where it's just like we're exhausted. And he starts opening up the pantry and the chips and the whatever. And I'm like, oh, what did you bring out? You know, and, salsa. Yeah, bring up the salsa. The next thing we know, we're like sitting there like 15 minutes later, we've polished off a bag of chips. We've polished off the salsa. And I'm like, great. Now I feel disgusting and guilty for eating all of this when I didn't need it. It wasn't even that I was hungry. It was tired. You know, for me, that's my thing, is that I'm just exhausted and I'm just like,
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And that's such a great point. And that's another huge piece of the mindfulness is if you're excessively hungry, if you're angry, if you're lonely, if you're tired, and the acronym for that is HALT. Stop yourself in your tracks and think, am I really hungry? And that's the question I ask everybody before they reach for the food. Ask yourself, am I hungry? And if you're not hungry, you got to ask yourself, you don't have to, but I recommend asking yourself other questions like, am I bored? Is this just a habit that I've developed? Like nighttime eating is like, people do that all the time. And believe me, I am nowhere near perfect, but I've gotten better, you know. And I'm like, when I'm sitting watching TV, like maybe a half an hour or whatever at night, or like one show that we'll DVR, and like we're gonna watch our show, how exciting, you know. And I'll be like, I think I need something crunchy, and then I'm thinking to myself, am I really hungry? And 99% of the time the answer is no, I'm not. It's just, I feel like it's this habitual thing that I have to do. And sometimes I will give in and have something crunchy. Other times I'm like, you know what, Michelle, you can enjoy this without having a food that you don't even really want right now, you know? So it's being aware, but that loneliness thing, the loneliness and the tired thing are huge. You know, when I'm not hungry and I'm tired, I take a nap. Or I head for the meditation. I grab my phone and I do a short meditation, because while I feel that we need to be self-compassionate with ourselves, whether we eat mindfully or not, whether we emotionally eat or not, self-compassion is always, always good for us. I also feel that really checking in and understanding where that desire to grab for the food is coming from. So if I know for a fact that it's just sheer exhaustion, I really try not to give into it, because then afterwards I feel like, why did I do that? I wasn't even hungry.
Yeah.
I just needed to take a nap, you know. And I know your big thing is, which I absolutely love, is self-care, you know. And what your body really needs right at that moment is to take a break or to take a nap if you can. It's not really, with the self-care is not to grab the chips. You know what I mean?
Really? Are you sure? Because at the time it feels good.
Yeah, I mean, but again, sometimes it is, and that's okay. And we don't need to feel guilty or shameful about it. It's just not something you want to do on a daily basis. You know what I mean? So the self-care is huge. And self-care, again, is making sure we're getting enough sleep, enough rest, enough breaks, enough water, you know, and all those other things that nourish our souls.
Yeah, enough water. I always, one of the things that I read consistently is that, you know, like you might just be thirsty and dehydrated, which for me also is one of the things that I need to be on top of my water intake, because I'm usually thirsty. Like, and usually I would say 90% of the time it's not hunger, but it is in fact thirst, because I'm just not keeping up with that.
Yes, I 100% agree with you. And, you know, my water intake is okay, but it could be better, you know? And so I have my water bottle here, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, not right now. but I do need to, that's something that it really is not natural to me. So I need to spike it with like some type of flavoring, I usually put pomegranate juice or lemon or something to make it more appetizing for me, because plain water usually, unless it's like ice cold, doesn't really cut it for me.
Yeah, I agree. I usually have to put lemon or then sparkling water. I
Yeah.
love sparkling water, so it has some sort of texture that I'm like, oh, I can drink this all day, you know. But I usually don't. I like flat water during the day, and then at nighttime hits, and it's like all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, let's sparkle it up, make it exciting.
Fancy time, yeah.
Well, it comes from when I was pregnant and I wasn't drinking wine. It was like sparkling water was my drink. So it was like my little fancy drink where my husband would have a beer and I'd have a sparkling water and we would cheers, and it just made it more special, you know? And it really just connects that intent, you know?
Yeah, I used to drink a lot of seltzer when I was pregnant too. Like especially like in the first, I would say 4 months. Like seltzer was like my big thing with lemon. I was like that and like jalapeno peppers.
Ooh.
I couldn't get enough of jalapeno peppers. It was crazy. And gyros, ridiculous.
That's awesome.
Oh my God. It was like, and ironically, my son loves jalapeno peppers.
Yeah, it just is the way it is. I used to get chocolate cravings. I was never a chocolate or dessert person. Like I liked it. I liked ice cream, but chocolate itself, I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
When I got pregnant with my son, I literally I needed chocolate every night, and he is a chocoholic. So, you know, I definitely.
Very interesting.
So, I wanted to be able to give some tips, and I love what we talked about as far as mindfulness and asking yourself some questions. Is there anything else that you can recommend to the moms as we wrap up the interview for them to keep in mind, you know, maybe especially in relation to the body image, you know, because I think that we're so hard on ourselves, you know, and on each other, you know, as far as what we look like, you know, like we're always judging, and it comes from, you know, because we judge ourselves, you know. It's like, oh, she looks bad in that, and oh, look, I guess she put on some weight, you know, whatever, you know. You know, guilty. I have done it, but I'm much more mindful using the word of the day now, because I'm like embracing where I'm at. Right. So, you know, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, bodies are a tough topic, you know, and I would say I don't really know any woman that is not on some level disenchanted with the way her body looks. You know, it's like a virus, you know, and I think that a lot of that is due to unrealistic expectations from the media, you know, and, you know, 99% of us are on Facebook and we see all these pictures coming up in our, you know, in our feed and this and that. So one suggestion would be to really understand that there is no perfect body, you know, and just because we see all these airbrushed images, they're airbrushed for a reason, you know, because the people that they're taking photos of are not perfect either, because there is no such thing.
Right.
So we have to always keep in mind that, you know, women and men are supposed to be of different sizes and shapes. And that really is a representation of many different things in our lives, but some is genetics, some is our heritage, some is how many children we've had. And to be honest with you, a lot of it is how much dieting we've done. And, you know, I won't go into all of that, but that has a lot to do with our bodies. And people don't like to really hear that, but it's really true. So our bodies are really a representation of many different things, but we need to, as women specifically, stop judging one another based on what our bodies look like, because we are so much more than just our bodies. You know, really, our bodies are vessels really to hold our souls. And we have to look beyond that. We have to look beyond what's on the outside and understand that people are different weights, like I said, for many, many different reasons. And sometimes when people gain weight, it's not for the reasons that people always think, oh, well, maybe she's like sitting in a closet eating donuts every day. And, many different things impact a person's weight. Diet being one of them, but also hormonal changes impact a woman's weight significantly. Our age, again, how much we've dieted, because that does impact many, many different things. Also medications that a person could be taking. And one big one that is huge, that it's like the elephant in the room, is stress. Because when we are in a constant state of fight or flight, our body is pumping out the cortisol, and that enables us to hold on to weight. So it's so important, and I know you talk about this a lot in your group, is again, the self-care, which will always help to reduce stress, because many moms especially are stressed out to the max, and I get it, I really do. But when I learned that really important connection between the stress, weight, and just general happiness with our bodies, it was eye-opening for me. So all of those things really can contribute to the weight of somebody. It's not just eating donuts in the closet, And, the other thing that we really need to embrace, especially as women, God gifted us with these bodies, so for many reasons, and some of us have chosen to have children, which I think is the most beautiful thing that we can do. I also think it's one of the best contributions we can make to the planet, but our bodies change hormonally, and I can't stress enough that as we get older and approach menopause and past that, our bodies are naturally going to change. And that's just, they're different seasons of our life, and it's not an indication of failure, that our bodies change. Sometimes they hold weight, sometimes the shape of our bodies change. All of that is expected. When we're 40, 50, 60 and older, we're not supposed to look like when we were 20. Our bodies have changed. And the approach I take is that we need to love our bodies at every stage, and we need to have unconditional love for our bodies. And that will not come overnight, especially if you're someone that struggles with this. But we can learn to respect our bodies for what they allow us to do every day. And for your moms and for me and for you, they've given us amazing children, And that doesn't mean that we're necessarily overweight, but it does mean that, our bodies go through changes. And it's really okay. It doesn't make us different. It doesn't make us different. It doesn't make our contribution to the earth any different. It just makes us more seasoned.
Yeah, it's so funny. I always, just talking about that, I find that sometimes women love their bodies retrospectively. Like, wow, I looked so awesome when I was 30, or look how hot I was when I was 20 and I thought I was a fat cow. Like, you have these experiences, and I joke with my mom all the time because, as we all do, we all have our food issues. And my mom, growing up, I always remember her thinking she was overweight, always. And she was never overweight. She still isn't. And, I learned from her, and I was like, I need to appreciate my body now, because in 10 years, I'm going to wish I looked like I do. And I keep, whenever I don't feel good, I'm going to be like, what, when I'm 60, I'm going to wish I looked like what I look like now at 40, and beyond, and I joke with my mom because her mother is like 93, and I said, I'm sure she's 93, wishes she still looked like you, and you're 65, So there's this like retrospective love, and it's like, well, now it's too late. You've missed the boat of loving your body for what it was at that time, which now you think was perfect.
Exactly.
Right?
That's so beautifully said. And it's not easy to do, but again, it's like one of those things where, like you say, you missed the boat. You missed the whole decade of loving your body, and that's so sad to me.
Yeah.
And believe me, I'm not immune to that at all, because I've been up and down the scale too many times to count. But when I finally had this like awakening of like, I don't want it to be conditional anymore. You know, I don't want it to be like, well, I'll love my body when I lose 10, 15, or 50 pounds. I want to love my body now, and I want to appreciate my body today. And so the sooner I can do that, the better off I'm going to be, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a process. It's a process. But I think, like you're saying, recognizing that you looked at pictures from a decade ago and you're like, wow, I thought I was so fat, and really I wasn't.
Yeah.
We're very hard on ourselves, and we always have to be checking in and saying, yeah, but who gets to decide anyway? You know, who gets to decide what's a perfect body? Certainly not the media, because their expectations are unrealistic.
Yeah.
It really needs to come from within us, you know. And I think it starts with respecting it, you know, and treating it kindly. And in ways to do that is to engage in regular self-care, you know. But another very important thing that you mentioned was that you could see your mother's dissatisfaction. And so that's what she modeled for you. And we always need to be aware that our kids are watching, and they listen to, they may not listen to clean their room or their bathroom, but they will listen when we say something negative, and they may not say anything, but they internalize it, especially if we say it consistently. You know, and I've worked with moms that won't even go in the pool with their kids because they don't want to put on a bathing suit. They're embarrassed to put on a bathing suit. And, you know, I've had several of those moments where I was, you know, at a much heavier weight, and my son was very, very young, and he wanted to go in the pool. And I'll never forget, it was a July 4th party, and I was much heavier than I am now. And I said, oh my God, I can't go in that pool. I can't take off this cover up. And I had like this light bulb moment, like, your son is 3 years old, Michelle. He wants to go in the pool with you. Are you really going to not take advantage of this moment? And I thank God every day for that aha moment, because it allowed me to take off my cover up and jump in the pool with my son. And it was definitely one of the turning points for me, where I said, nobody's looking at you, Michelle, really. Nobody cares, you know? But my experience was that I unleashed something, and I got to enjoy that time with my son, you know? And a lot of people, they deny themselves, deny themselves, and they deny their children of an adventure, an experience, because of their shame. And that breaks my heart. It really, truly does. Because even though I had the feelings and I wanted to, I wouldn't take that away from my son. I wouldn't, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an important point. You like miss out on so much when you're worried. And at the end of the day, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Everybody's in their own world worrying about how they look in their bathing suit.
That's exactly right. They're thinking about, oh my God, who's looking at me? Nobody cares what we look like, you know? Yeah. And to be very honest with you, if they do, poo on them, because, you know, life is not about judging. It's not about comparing. It's about enjoying the ride, you know? Yeah. And if we're sitting around, oh my God, look how fat she is, or whatever, really? I mean, if that's the stuff that you're looking to do in your life, no thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
No, thank you.
So, is there anything that you have going on? Do you have any, I should have asked you this before, but do you have any sort of like a worksheet or a PDF or something that you can share with the group that might give them something to think about? Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, I do. I have a free ebook that I wrote a while ago that I really love and feel passionately about. It's called Are You Really Hungry? And it talks about, and this is, you know, primarily for women that struggle with emotional eating or any type of disordered eating, to ask themselves some important questions before they're reaching for the food, you know. But it's helpful. It's free. That's a great price. And yeah, and you know, I think that they'll get a lot out of it. So I'm happy to do that link so that you can grab that. And I also have another free ebook about the dangers of chronic dieting. You know, because that's my message that's so important, is that diets don't work. They don't. And, you know, the industry is a $60 billion industry, and they have to keep reinventing diets because none of them work. Because they're really designed to fail us. And what I help women to see is that number one, they fail us. They're designed to do that. And that, you know, if people have gained weight, you know, after they've lost weight, which is a very, very common thing, that it's not their fault, you know. Right. So this will help. I can give you both links, you know.
Oh, that would be lovely. Yay! Yeah. We'll put those links underneath the video when I post it to the group. So look out for the link underneath this. Well, in the group when I announce the video. Yeah, that's awesome.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. And I also have a free group on Facebook if anyone is interested in, you know, living a no diet approach to life and learning to respect and love their body. I have a free group on Facebook, and you're welcome to join us there because we have a lot of fun, and I post a lot of inspirational things and really help people to see things from a different angle. And to be honest with you, we all need that a little bit. We really do.
Absolutely.
You know, we really do. Because we're so like programmed to see things in one way, and sadly that one way is very damaging for a lot of people, and it really makes them feel bad about themselves. And I'm all about like lifting women up so that they can let go of all of those expectations that are just not serving them.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much. I so appreciate all of your insights. We'll post the links to the books, and we'll post the link to the Facebook group because I'm sure everyone could benefit from that perspective and having a support group with that kind of thing.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I'm so grateful that you did.
Thanks, Trisha. I love the work you're doing. I love your energy. You're a great person. You're a great friend. And I love what you stand for. I love that you help women to see that they can have a life while they're raising their kids. And that they can keep that fire burning. You don't have to like put everything off to the side just because you've had children, you know. And I think that that's a beautiful message because so many women get lost. They don't know what they're doing. They just don't, and they don't think they're even entitled to have a dream other than raising their children. So
yes, exactly. That's what inspires me more than anything is that I talk to people all the time, and in a regular conversation, they're just like, "Oh, you know, I'm just doing my thing." And it's like, oh, you had 30 years of dreams, or like 25 to 40 years of dreams, the whole person that existed, and then all of a sudden, like, she's gone. She's like, oh no, we just put her in the closet. She's fine. It's like, no, she's knocking. Did you hear her? She's knocking. She wants to come out.
You know, there needs to be a paradigm shift with this. And we're starting to see it. We are definitely starting to see it. And, you know, women like you who are speaking about these types of things and helping women not to feel guilty about it, you know, is so, so important. And I'm doing similar things with women and helping them a paradigm shift out of what's a perfect body and what diet can I go on to look perfect into let me look at what I already have and love it, you know. And there's a lot of paradigm shifts that are needed in order for people to really find their true passion in life. So thank you again for the work that you're doing because I think it's beautiful and I love being part of your group.
Oh, I love that you're part of the group too. This is great. So thank you. And we'll talk to you next week.
Okay. Bye, Patricia. Thank you.